So that particular year, if you look at international trade and finance, it was not tested much. So I want us to go to April. We'll start with April 2025. April 2025. This we should have April 2025. 25. To get to the April 25. For that particular year, that area was not, so that area should be one of the areas that are likely to be tested. So we we'll look at that. We'll check on that particular area. So if you ask this question, I just want to summarize 6 factors that may determine the exchange rate of a country. Exchange rate of a country. 6 factors. 6 factors that we say that might determine. The word is determine, what we call exchange rate of what we call of a country. Exchange rate of a country. That question we did in money and banking. Factors that are likely to determine the exchange rate of a country. Factors that are likely to determine the exchange rate of a country. Did you do that question under money and banking? We had issues to do with economic growth. Economic growth. Do you remember that? Economic growth, when we talked about exchange rate in the economy. So I've talked about economic growth, but I talk about balance of payment. The next talk about what we call balance of what we call payment. So we have what's called balance of payment. So whenever we talk about balance of payment, we have 2 balance of payment. We have what's called surplus, and then we have what's called deficit. You see, whenever we talk about surplus, if you're very keen, surplus is whenever we are exporting more than, the word is more than importing. When a country exports more than importing, more than what they call importing. So when a country is basically exporting more than importing, we call it surplus. We call it a surplus. So during surplus, we have what we call appreciation. Instead of appreciation of a currency, there will be what's called appreciation of what we call of a currency. There will be what's called appreciation of a currency. When you have a deficit, when you say a country is experiencing a deficit balance of payment, that only we import. Import is greater than export. Import is greater than export. So in that scenario, in that scenario, deficit, when you have a deficit, it leads to what's called depreciation. Depreciation of what we call of a currency. We have what's called depreciation of a currency. Give me yes. In that scenario, we have what's called depreciation of a currency. Then we also have a factor, we call it interest rate, under the type of exchange rate. This is also under international trade or finance. But we also touch a bit of it, interest rate. So when an interest rate in domestic interest rate, are we together? When increase in interest rate, when you have increase in interest rate, increase in what we call interest rate. So this definitely we understand that leads to what we call appreciation of what we call of a currency. Leads to what we call appreciation. So when the interest rates are high, the currency will definitely appreciate. we respond with a yes. I know it's very early in the morning, but I want us to be strong for the goal that we have. So when the interest rates are high, a currency will definitely appreciate. Then when the interest rates are low, what you call low interest rate, leads to what you call depreciation. This will lead to what you call to a depreciation, leads to depreciation of what you call of a currency. So the low interest rate, we understand, will lead to what's called depreciation of a currency. Give me a yes, kindly, and I hope you are there with me. Give me a yes as we talk about that question needed. Six factors. So then you have inflation. Inflation, when there's a lot of circulation, inflation. So with inflation leads to depreciation, leads to what you call depreciation of what you call of a currency. So this leads to what you call depreciation of a currency. So this will definitely leads to what you call depreciation, and we call it depreciation of a currency. That will lead to the depreciation of what you call a currency. That will lead to what you call depreciation of a currency. Then you have what you call speculation. When there's what you call speculation, what we understand that speculation, are we together? So speculation, we understand that speculation, if there's speculation, it will appreciate. That will lead to appreciation, lead to what's called appreciation, appreciation of what we call of a currency. So that should definitely lead to what's called appreciation of a currency. If there's a lot of speculation, then we understand that that will definitely lead to what's called will lead to a currency appreciating together. Lead to together, the currency appreciating, and vice versa. Lack of specialization will lead to an exchange rate altogether. Will lead to an exchange rate. Will lead to what's called exchange rate. Will lead to what's called exchange rate. Will lead to what they call exchange rate, not a currency not appreciating altogether. So then we have what's called government policy. We can talk about government, what you call the government policy. We touch on what's called the government policy. How does government policy basically affect a currency? We know that government influences the value of a currency through revaluation or devaluation. Through what's called through revaluation or devaluation. So revaluation, or it means they increase the value of them, so the government may influence through revaluation and devaluation. And lastly, prevailing, we can talk about prevailing, we call it political atmosphere. Prevailing political atmosphere. So basically on prevailing political atmosphere, whenever we talk about prevailing political atmosphere, we're talking about two things altogether. So when there's political instability, when there's instability, and what causes stability. Instability and what causes stability. So when the political atmosphere is instability, we know that depreciation of a currency, the value of a currency, depreciation of what we call of a currency. But when there's stability, we'll have what's called acquisition. Exchange rate will be acquisition of what we call of a currency. Acquisition of a currency. Is that question perfectly done? So that was question 4C. Question 4C. Tafadhali patia mwalimu yes. So that's question 4C. Kama tuko sawa tubonyeze yes.